Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 4, the characteristics of Rishabdev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text number 14 onwards. So one thing I was thinking with these prose verses, it's very difficult to read. It takes away all the flow. So I'll not read the Sanskrit for the verses, which has so much of words. And we'll just go straight to translation. So text 14, translation. Being an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishabdev was fully independent because his form was spiritual, eternal, and full of transcendental bliss. He eternally had nothing to do with the four principles of material misery, means birth, death, old age, and disease, nor was he materially attached. He was always equipoised, and he saw everyone on the same level. He was unhappy to see others unhappy, and he was the well-wisher of all living entities. Although he was a perfect personality, the Supreme Lord and controller of all, he nonetheless acted as if he were an ordinary conditioned soul. Therefore, he strictly followed the principles of Varnashram Dharma and acted accordingly. In due course of time, the principles of Varnashram Dharma had become neglected. Therefore, through his personal characteristics and behavior, he taught the ignorant public how to perform duties within the Varnashram Dharma. In this way, he regulated the general population, householder life, enabling them to develop religion and economic well-being, and to attain reputation, sons and daughters, material pleasure, and finally eternal life. By his instructions, he showed people how people could remain householders and at the same time become perfect by following the principles of Varnashram Dharma. So this is what Krishna also says when he says that I appear to establish the principles of religion, to establish dharma. So one thing is he appears to establish Varnashram Dharma. And obviously the Param Dharma of devotion service to Krishna. So similarly, one of the main reasons for all the incarnations to appear is to establish dharma. And here in the shloka it is said, somehow it had become neglected, Varnashram Dharma. So it's not just in this Kali Yuga it has been neglected. Somehow people just don't like to follow rules in other day and ages also. The Varnashram Dharma is meant for imperfect conditioned souls. It trains them to become spiritually advanced in order to return home back to Godhead. A civilization that does not know the highest aim of life is no better than animal society. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Natavidu Sarthagatim Hi Vishnu. A human society is meant for elevation to spiritual knowledge so that all of the people can be freed from the clutches of birth, death, old age, and disease. The Varnashram Dharma enables human society to become perfectly fit for getting out of the clutches of Maya. And by following the regulative principles of Varnashram Dharma, one can become successful. In this regard, Prabha says, see Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter. So Varnashram Dharma, that's why it's very important. So basically, people are at peace, working their whatever they are supposed to be doing, and at the same time worshipping the Supreme Lord, remaining in their Varna or Ashram, and make the life perfect. Not the caste system, Varnashram Dharma. Yadyat chirnyanyascharitam tattadanuvartate lokaha. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow. A similar verse is also found in Bhagavad Gita 3:21. It is essential for human society to have a section of men perfectly trained as qualified Brahmins according to the instructions of Vedic knowledge. Those below the Brahminical qualification, administrators, merchants, and workers, should take instructions from those ideal people who are considered to be intellectuals. In this way, everyone can be elevated to the highest transcendental position and be freed from material attachment. The material world is described by Lord Krishna himself as Dukkalayam, Ashashvata, a temporary place of misery. No one can stay here, even if he makes a compromise with misery, he still has to give up his body. One has to give up his body and accept another, which may not be even a human body. As soon as one gets a material body, he becomes a Dehabhrit or Dehi. In other words, he is subjected to all the material conditions. The leaders of society must be so ideal that by following them, one can be relieved from the clutches of material existence. So this is the Varnashram Dharma. Means the Brahmins should be the leaders of the society, and they should be leading the society properly according to the scriptures. So first they have to have the knowledge of scriptures, and then they could lead according to scriptures by following their Brahminical qualifications also. And the whole society can be properly situated if they follow these Brahmins. So Brahmins are considered the head of the society. So just like in our body, if we follow the brains, we can do better job. But we just like to follow the mind. And mind is restless. And that's where the problem comes. Yadyapi svaviditam sakala dharmam brahmam guhyam brahmanar darshitam margena samadhibher upayar janatam anushashasa. Although Lord Rishabdev knew everything about confidential Vedic knowledge, which includes information about all types of occupational duties, he still maintained himself as a Kshatriya and followed the instructions of the Brahmins as they related to mind control, sense control, tolerance, and so forth. Thus, he ruled the people according to the system of Varnashram Dharma, which enjoins that the Brahmins instruct the Kshatriyas and the Kshatriyas administer to the state through the Vaishyas and Shudras. Although Rishabdev knew all the Vedic instructions perfectly well, he nonetheless followed the instructions of the Brahmins in order to perfectly maintain the social order. The Brahmins would give advice according to the Shastras, and all the other castes would follow. The word Brahma means perfect knowledge of all activities, and this knowledge is very confidentially described in the Vedic literatures. Men trained perfectly as Brahmins should know all Vedic literature, and the benefit derived from this literature should be distributed to the general populace. The general populace should follow the perfect Brahman. In this way, one can learn how to control the mind and senses and thus gradually advance to spiritual perfection. So again, even Rishabdev Maharaj, he is a supreme personality of Godhead, and he knows everything about Vedic knowledge, but he was acting as a Kshatriya. So he was following the Brahmins, because as a rule, Kshatriyas should follow the Brahmins. Same thing, even Lord Ram, when he appeared, he followed Vishwamitra Muni. And even Krishna, he followed Sandipni Muni. He accepted Sandipni Muni as a spiritual master. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed Ishwarapuri. So every time the Lord appears, he establishes how we can set up this varnashram system and follow it properly. Dravya desha kalavya shraddhar fig vividhodesha pachitah sarvairapi kritubhir yathopadesham shatkritav yaja. Lord Rishabdev performed all kinds of sacrifices 100 times according to the instructions of the Vedic literatures. Thus he satisfied Lord Vishnu in every respect. All the rituals were enriched by first-class ingredients. They were executed in holy places according to the proper time by priests who were all young and faithful. In this way, Lord Vishnu was worshipped and the prasad was offered to all the demigods. Thus the functions and festivals were all successful. It is said, Komara acharita pragyo dharmana bhagavataniha. A ritual should be performed by young men, even boys at a tender age, in order for the ritual to be performed successfully. From childhood, people should be trained in Vedic culture, especially in devotional service. In this way, one can perfect one's life. A Vaishnava does not disrespect the demigods, but on the other hand, he is not so foolish that he accepts each and every demigod as a supreme person. The Supreme Lord is master of all demigods. Therefore, the demigods are his servants. The Vaishnava accepts them as servants of the Supreme Lord and he worships them directly. In the Brahma Samhita, the important demigods, Lord Shiva, Brahma, and even the incarnations and expansions of Lord Krishna, like Mahavishnu, Garbhadaksha Vishnu, and all of the Vishnu Tattvas, as well as the Shakti Tattvas like Durga Devi, are all worshipped by process of worshipping Govinda with the words Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhayami. A Vaishnava worships the demigods in relation to Govinda, not independently. Vaishnavas are not so foolish that they consider the demigods independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arasam Bhritya. The Supreme Master is Krishna and all others are his servants. So in the shloka this says, in this way Lord Vishnu was worshipped and the prasad was offered to all the demigods. Thus the functions and festivals were all successful. So even if in our households, maybe a tradition, family tradition going on, that we have to worship the demigods. So, but as a Vaishnava, as a devotees, we understand the position of demigods. So there's nothing wrong in worshipping them according to the proper position as servants of Krishna, not as Supreme Personality. And they can be offered the prasad of Krishna. Then they will be very pleased, in fact. Just like a son is there and a father is there. And if somebody starts worshipping the son without paying respect to the father, if it is an obedient son, he will not like it. He will say, no, worship my father. I'll show you how to worship my father by worshipping his own father. And then son will be very happy. The father will be happy as well. So similarly, when Krishna is worshipped, all the demigods themselves, they get pleased. They're very happy because they all are devotees of Krishna. They know their position, they know the position of Krishna, and they know our position as well. So we can worship them by offering them Krishna Prasad. That's the best way. Text 18. Translation. No one likes to possess anything that is like a will-o'-the-wisp or a flower in the sky. For everyone knows very well that such things do not exist. When Lord Rishabdev ruled this planet of Bharatvarsha, even common men did not want to ask for anything at any time or by any means. No one ever asks for a will-o'-the-wisp. In other words, everyone was completely satisfied, and therefore there was no chance of anyone asking for anything. The people were absorbed in great affection for the king. Since this affection was always expanding, they were not inclined to ask for anything. So, this is how satisfied the population was. They did not ask for anything, they just did their services. In Bengal, the word ghoda dimba is used, which means egg of a horse. Since a horse never lays an egg, the word ghoda dimba actually has no meaning. In Sanskrit, there is the word ka pushpa, which means a flower in the sky. No flower grows in the sky. Therefore, no one is interested in asking for ka pushpa or ghoda dimba. During the reign of Maharaj Rishabdev, people were so well equipped that they did not want to ask for anything. They were immensely supplied with all necessities of life due to King Rishabdev's good government. Consequently, everyone felt full satisfaction and did not want anything. This is the perfection of government. If the citizens are unhappy due to bad government, the heads of government are condemned. During these democratic days, monarchy is disliked by the people. But here is an example of how an emperor of the whole world kept all the citizens fully satisfied by supplying the necessities of life and following the Vedic principles. Thus, everyone was happy during the reign of Maharaj Rishabdev, the supreme personality of Godhead. So they were happy and they were completely satisfied because they were looked after properly by the kingdom or by the government of Maharaj Rishabdev. Text 19. Once, while touring the world, Lord Rishabdev, the Supreme Lord, reached a place known as Brahmavat. There was a great conference of learned Brahmins at that place, and all the king's sons attentively heard the instructions of the Brahmins there. At that assembly, within the hearing of the citizens, Rishabdev instructed his sons, although they were already very well behaved, devoted, and qualified. He instructed them so that in the future they could rule the world very perfectly. Thus he spoke as follows. The instructions of Lord Rishabdev to his sons are very valuable if one wants to live peacefully within this world, which is full of miseries. In the next chapter, Lord Rishabdev gives his sons these valuable instructions. So thus ends the 4th chapter of 5th canto. So we'll start the 5th chapter. It's a very, very important chapter, very important teachings by Lord Rishabdev to his sons. And his eldest son was Bharat Maharaj. So chapter 5, text 1. The very first verse is very, very important. Rishabha uvacha nayam deho dehbhajam driloke kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujam ye tapo divyam putrika yena satmam shuddhiya dasmad brahm sokyam tvanantam. Lord Rishabdev told his sons, my dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. Heavy, heavy statement. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified. And when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. So we are looking for material happiness, temporary, and which is only pertaining to sense gratification. for which human form everybody is working hard day and night. And this sense gratification is available even for dogs and hogs who eat stool. They're also working for sense gratification. We are doing the same. What's the point? Rather, one should engage in penance and austerity, tapo divyam, and not just regular tapa, regular tapasya, divyam. And what happens? Putraka yena sattam, shuddhyeda asmat. Then you become purified. Then what happens? Then you get Brahma Sokhyam Tva Anantam. You're looking for bliss, you're looking for happiness, you get the spiritual happiness. What kind of happiness? Anantam. No ending. Everlasting. Continues forever. So that should be the goal of life. In this verse, Lord Rishabdev tells his sons about the importance of human life. The word DHAR refers to anyone who accepts a material body, but the living entity who is awarded the human form must act differently from animals. Animals like dogs and hogs enjoy sense gratification by eating stool. After undergoing severe hardships all day, human beings are trying to enjoy themselves at night by eating, drinking, having sex, and sleeping. At the same time, they have to properly defend themselves. However, this is not human civilization. Human life means voluntarily practicing suffering for the advancement of spiritual life. There is, of course, suffering in the lives of animals and plants which are suffering due to the past misdeeds. However, human beings should voluntarily accept suffering in the form of austerities and penances in order to attain the divine life. So sacrifice. Sacrifice is always performed to attain something better. And we all are performing sacrifices every day. Not just we have to do havan or yagya. No, sacrifice we are doing there. Okay, nobody wants to get up early in the morning. Nobody likes to, especially in these days when it is so cold. But we still get up so that we can chant our rounds properly. Or students, when they have exams, they get up early so that they can have good grades and then they can have better education later on. Of course, their goal is something material, but nevertheless, human beings are always performing sacrifices. Nobody likes to go to work in the morning, but they go. It's a sacrifice of their comfort. In the times of heat, when it is May or June or July, who wants to cook, stand in front of that burning oven and wants to cook? But all the Matajis are cooking. They're sweating and cooking. That's a sacrifice. For what? So that the family can be fed properly. So everybody is performing sacrifices. But our main aim of the sacrifice should be to please Krishna. After attaining the divine life, one can enjoy happiness eternally. So that divine life can be attained if we perform sacrifice for the pleasure of Krishna. After all, every living entity is trying to enjoy happiness, but as long as one is encased in the material body, he has to suffer different kinds of miseries. A higher sense is present in the human form. We should act according to superior advice in order to attain eternal happiness and go back to Godhead. It is significant in this verse that the government and this natural guardian, the father, should educate subordinates and raise them to Krishna consciousness. Devoid of Krishna consciousness, every living being suffers in this cycle of birth and death perpetually. To relieve them from this bondage and enable them to become blissful and happy, Bhakti Yoga should be taught. A foolish civilization neglects to teach people how to rise to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. Without Krishna consciousness, a person is no better than a dog or a hog. The instructions of Rishabdev are very essential at the present moment. People are being educated and trained to work very hard for sense gratification, and there is no sublime aim in life. A man travels to earn his livelihood, leaving home early in the morning, catching a local train, and being packed in a compartment. He has to stand for an hour or two in order to reach his place of business. Then again, he takes a bus to get to the office. At the office, he works hard from 9 to 5. Then he takes 2 or 3 hours to return home. After eating, he has sex and goes to sleep. For all this hardship, his only happiness is a little sex. Rishabdev clearly states that human life is not meant for this kind of existence, which is enjoyed even by dogs and hogs. Indeed, dogs and hogs do not have to work so hard for sex. A human being should try to live in a different way and should not try to imitate dogs and hogs. The alternative is mentioned. Human life is meant for tapasya, austerity, and penance. By tapasya, one can get out of the material clutches. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, devotion service, his happiness is guaranteed eternally. By taking to Bhakti Yoga, devotion service, one's existence is purified. The living entity is seeking happiness life after life, but he can make a solution to all his problems simply by practicing Bhakti Yoga. Then he immediately becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. So one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Archana. So Prabhupada gives nice example of the material people who are performing so many activities and so many austerities every day. But in the end, what's the happiness? Little sex. Of course, their happiness is also, okay, I got this much money saved in my bank account, and I have that house and this car and this many jewelry I got, and I have a stable income coming to my bank account every month. But this does not give a permanent happiness. So to get that permanent happiness, one has to perform the sacrifices to make progress spiritually. So more, of course, at present moment, we have to do both. Both have to go hand in hand. But at the same time, our focus should be on spiritual practices, a sacrifice to make advancement spiritually. That will guarantee us a permanent blissful life in the spiritual world. Otherwise, the material world goes on, we work hard, and then we get some money, but then we get sick, and then we get old and we die, and then again we take birth, again we work hard, again we get sick, again we get old, again we die, and it goes on and on and on and on. There is no stoppage of this cycle until we want it to stop. So for us, when we start sacrificing for spiritual advancement, and then we understand even the material work that we are doing, we should understand it's basically given by Krishna. So it's a responsibility. And when we understand it's a responsibility given by Krishna, it doesn't become a sacrifice or a penance. It's not a tapasya. Then it is bhakti. Then we enjoy it. We enjoy everything. Even working in the office, we enjoy. Okay, Krishna wants me to work in the office. Fine. I'll work. then it becomes blissful, it becomes bhakti. Many times people ask, oh, oh, you have to cook now for yourself. Well, cooking is bhakti, because I'm cooking for the deities. What is wrong? It's not like only sitting down and chanting or reading or giving lecture on Bhagavatam is only bhakti. Everything is bhakti. But that frame of mind has to change. The consciousness has to change. And this is what Krishna consciousness is. So devotees also work hard. It's not like they're sitting down and doing nothing. They also work hard. But this hard work or sacrifice, or tapasya, the devotees are doing, even if it looks like the same activity as the karmis are doing, but it's different because the consciousness is different. And when that consciousness is there, the Krishna consciousness, that I'm doing because Krishna has put me in this position to do this work, and I'm going to do it for his pleasure. I'm going to do my best and enjoy the work at the same time. I know the results are in Krishna's hands, but I'll do my job properly. And I'll use whatever time, whatever money I have, whatever energy I have in the service of Krishna. That's all. So then the boring or hardship work, it also becomes bhakti, and it becomes very blissful, very enjoyable. So anyway, let's stop here. We'll see anybody has any questions or comments. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I have one question. This Bharat Maharaj that you're talking about, is it the same story as Jad Bharat?
He later became Jad Bharat, yes.
Oh, okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I was confused while you were telling that, and I was thinking to ask you at the end of the session, Prabhuji. Okay, Prabhuji. Okay. Thank you so much. Prabhuji, and today Prabha Mata's birthday is there. So she's there in the class.
Oh, happy birthday, Mata. Wish you a very, very, very happy birthday.
Thank you so very much, Prabhuji. Thank you for, like each day, like I would say, transforming our lives, taking us towards the path of bhakti. Thank you so very much. And thanks to each and everyone who is there in this session by asking their questions. It's I would say, it's furthering my progress on this pathway. Thank you so very much.
Well, mine too. Thank you all.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Mata.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Mata.
Thank you, Ji.
Happy birthday, Mataji.
Happy birthday, Mata.
Happy birthday, Prabha Mataji, once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday,
Krishna
Mataji.
bless you all.
Happy birthday, Mataji.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, one question on King Nabhi, the father of Rishabdev. So, after giving, the kingdom to Rishabdev, he went to for austerity, he went inside the forest. And but the question is around, in his King Nabhi's home, Lord himself.
I lost you. Lost you. So you can write your question on the group and we'll try to answer it tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Thank you all very much. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.